Hall in the foothills of the Rocky Mountains, it's eTown with this week's guests from Venezuela and North Carolina, Valerie and Joe. And currently splitting her time between New York City and her native Tennessee, Valerie June. I'm Helen Forster. Right now, join me in welcoming our host, Nick Forster.
Thank you, Helen. Thanks, everybody. Welcome. Welcome to eTown Hall. This is going to be a good one this week. We have such a good group of guests. It's going to be a multicultural, bilingual celebration of creativity and connections across all kinds of borders and boundaries. Our guests, like all of us, are trying to make sense of what's going on out there in the world. And that includes for them the joys of making music and traveling and reflecting back to us the challenges out there. And that includes the struggles of poverty and persecution, and all that stuff's going to be in the show today. It's going to be good. Larry and Joe are here. Joe's been to eTown before with his group Che Appalachia, but he is a North Carolina native. He spent 10 years living in Argentina. He traveled a lot and learned a lot about that culture and that music when he was down there. His roots are in old-time North Carolina banjo and fiddle music. He met his musical partner there in North Carolina. Larry June is a master musician from Venezuela. He's a celebrated cuatro player, and he also plays the harp beautifully. He had to leave his native Venezuela and migrated to North Carolina with his wife and kid and worked construction and didn't know if he was going to still play music after a while, but they found each other, and it's just an amazing duo that these guys have created, and the sounds they make are really just absolutely unique. So maybe it's Latin grass. I don't know if that's a name. Maybe that's a name. Latin grass? Could be. Up first, Valerie June is here. She's also kind of hard to describe. I can't tell you exactly what it is that she does other than she's from Tennessee. She's amazing. She's moved around a little bit. She lives in New York part of the time. She's a singer-songwriter. She's also an author, published poet, actor. She's a creative, free spirit who's inspired by lots of different sounds, including a lot of Southern American roots music. She's just playful and joyful, and she puts that very positive stamp on everything she does. Certainly she's been celebrated, great reviews in the New York Times and Rolling Stone. She was here back in 2019, and she's back again. Would you please help me welcome back to eTown, Valerie June.
Thanks for having me back. I will do a song that I really enjoy playing these days. It's a Lightning Hopkins song. He was magical. You know the life I used to live, I ain't gonna live it no more. Ain't gonna leave it no more. I used to live so reckless, I was losing friends everywhere I go. Well, I'm gonna change my way of living. I'm gonna join a church again. I'm gonna change my way of living. I'm gonna join a church again. Then I can hang around talking sweet religion to all my friends.
live that way no more. Well, I learned when I overstay my welcome. Now I know, now I know, now I know when it's time to go. You know the life I used to live, I ain't gonna live it no more. You know the life I used to live, I ain't gonna live it no more. I used to live so reckless, I was losing friends everywhere I go. Thank you. I would like to read you a poem if that's okay. I wrote this book called Maps for the Modern World, and the idea is that you hold the key in the map in your heart. How to make the world a sweeter and kinder place every day. Nobody can tell you how to be sweet. You gotta be sweet on your own. So I illustrated this book, and I put maybe 100 illustrations in there, all kinds of fairies and leaves and a bunch of hippies. But my favorite illustration is this one, and for the people listening, what do you see? A blank page, exactly. Oh, such a great artist. Pat, pat, pat on the back. But the poem is called Blank Page because every day when we wake up and we go out, when we're little, they say, you get a new day, you get a blank page, it's a brand new day. As we get older, I don't know if we believe that. Do y'all believe it? Do we get a blank page? All right then. Well, I like to believe that we do get that blank page, and that we have a whole bunch of paint of many, many colors, from emotions to all kinds of events that will occur in the day to paint the day with. But this is a poem to remind you that when you wake up, you do have that magic, and we collectively as a world have that magic. We can create this beautiful space. You only have one day till the moonrise, sunset down, only one day before the sunrise, moonset round. What will you do and where will you be found? Who will you be? Leave the earth-wrapped love spellbound. You only have 1 hour before the stars shine midnight blue, just a single hour till the clear sky morning dew. How will you face this bright day pathway new, and what words to write on this blank page lying beneath you? What will be said of your stargaze lightship eyes? What could be heard of your bird flight cross blue skies? And who could have seen your moon-glowed night dance twirls? And who would have guessed you'd sketch a rainbow painted world?
Valerie June. Wow, well, you look great. So good to see you.
Thank you.
You've been busy since we last saw each other.
Yeah.
I suppose a pandemic helps with your career as a writer because you got time to think about writing, or were you doing that all along?
Well, it really just started when my father passed. I started writing these poems, and I ended up getting a huge stack of them, and a friend of mine said, you need to put together a book, so I did.
And it was published.
Oh, yeah.
And it came out in 2021.
Yeah, it's so surreal to be touring and walk into Barnes & Noble to get some book of another writer and be like, oh my God,
There's your book. Yeah. It's really cool. And you know what's also cool about it is that it's kind of, it's analog, right? It's old school analog media making.
It is.
You know, it's not a meme. It's not on TikTok. It's a book you made, and it's out there in the bookstores.
Yeah.
And then you wrote another one.
Once I got started, you know.
Yeah.
It was a few years ago, and I went to a psychic, and she said, you're going to write a book. And I was like, what? And she was like, you're actually going to write 2 or 3 books. And I was like, no, I'm a songwriter. You got it wrong. And I guess she was right.
Was that the only time you ever went to a psychic?
Oh, no. I've been a few times.
Yeah, did you get some other good messages?
Ooh, yeah, I should have listened to the one that told me about my first husband.
Oh, yeah.
She was like, "You're going to meet a man from a faraway land." And she said it would probably not be good. And I was like, "Oh, my God." But, you know, when you fall in love, you got to do what
Yeah.
your heart tells you. Just
Yeah.
let it beat you up sideways and toss you over and all this stuff. So I let it do what it had to do, and I came out like, bam! A strong woman. Strong.
Well, I want to talk. Your next book is called Light Beams, a workbook for being your badass self. So what's keeping all of us from being our best badass selves?
I think we know what's keeping us. It's just a matter of taking the time to create practices. And I call it a workbook because it's really a book of practices that help keep us in tune with our higher being and with our higher self and our greater consciousness and our sweetness and our kindness. It takes work. We can't just wake up in the morning and go out there thinking, "Oh, well, I'm just going to shine." No, shining is a practice. And what do? Because we have so many things coming at us all day, every day, mostly through the news or sometimes in traffic. Folks cut us off. It's like, "Get there! You want to yell at them or whatever," but like, what's the practice that you have that works best for you? So each person, kind of similar to Maps for the Modern World, knows that practice to shine, to be the brightest light beam. And that's really our only purpose in life, you know?
You know, it comes across that you're a mentor, and it takes a certain amount of confidence. I'm just wondering about who are those mentors or elders who helped inform you on your path?
There are so many, and in the back of the book, Light Beams, I got to the end of writing that book, and I was like, you know what? I can't close this book without writing down my guides and my teachers, from writers to musicians to philosophers and politicians, different people who have inspired me, because we find our paths not alone, but from our ancestors, from the babies that are being born, from the stars.
Was Mavis one of the people listed in the back of your book who's shining light or a guide for you in some way, Mavis Staples?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Having met her in my lifetime, she is a ball of joy, and she asked me for some songs, and I said, "Well, what do these songs need to be like?" She said, "They need to be positive. I promised Pops that I would only sing positive songs." I said, "Well, dang, I ain't got no positive songs. I got like over 100 songs, and they all about how this went bad and that went bad." And then I was like, wait a minute, Mavis was my mentor who attuned me to positivity in music and how it can touch all, you know?
It was such an honor for us to have Pop Staples on eTown a couple of times. And Mavis used to complain and say, "How come you're having my dad on the show and you're not having me?" So we've been lucky enough to have Mavis on the show a bunch of times too. So if people want to find these books of yours, just like your music, it's best to find it on your website. Is that right? Or
The best way that supports me directly is through my website or my shows, but any way you can, I'll take it.
Yeah. And again, I just feel like it's so easy to be overwhelmed. It's so easy to fall into this trap of feeling like things are not hopeful. And so I really appreciated both your poetry and your workbook that have these very specific pathways to positivity and through the filter of your joy and your special spirit, which is pretty cool.
Thank you.
It's
Nick.
worth checking out. The books, again, are called
Maps for the Modern World.
Maps for the Modern World is a poetry book, yeah. And then
Light Beams, a workbook for being your better self. We'll use that word, because
Why
I don't know
can't
if I
you
can
say it?
say
You can
the
say
other
it.
word.
You can
Your
say it.
badass self.
there you go. You can say that. All right, well, listen, let's get back to music. Thanks so much. Welcome back, if you would, Valerie June.
Thank you.
Well, if you're tired and you're feeling so lonely, you wake up at night thinking that only if you had somebody, well, I'll be somebody. You're somebody to love. Did they tell you there were plenty of fish in the sea, but you're out in the cold and you're feeling empty? Or you're looking for somebody wanted to say.
Valerie June, along with eTown's Adam Bodine, Braxton Kahn, and Seth Lewis this week. Helen Forster singing. Her latest is called Undercover, an EP. But on a high note, Valerie June will be back to play some more music later on in the show.
Your visit to eTown is made possible in part by the Bohemian Foundation, building stronger communities through the bohemian qualities of creativity and imagination. On the web at bohemianfoundation.org. You may have heard this before, but just as a reminder, there are over 2,000 videos on the eTown YouTube channel for your viewing pleasure and listening pleasure, where you can also subscribe on that YouTube channel of eTown's in order to stay up to date with our latest video offerings. You're listening to eTown.
I'm Nick Forster. You are listening to eTown. Valerie June going to be back to play some more music later on. And now Lottie and Joe are here. As I mentioned, Joe Troop was here a few years ago with his Grammy-nominated band Che Appalachia. He's from North Carolina, lived in Argentina for 10 years. He brought his banjo and his fiddle and his guitar with him to Argentina and taught bluegrass and old-time music to folks down there. During the pandemic, he was, I guess you could say, kind of stuck in his native North Carolina. But he didn't waste any time. He stayed creative. He wrote songs. He put out a solo record. And in 2021, he met Lare, his future musical partner. Lare Bellorin hails from Venezuela. He is a legend of llanera music. He literally started out shining shoes as a kid, but he sang while he was doing that. And his talent was eventually recognized. He was sent to music school where he soon became a master of the cuatro and eventually the harp and many other instruments. He got married and had a daughter, started a music school, taught hundreds of kids, and was really recognized as a master musician in his home country. But then, when Hugo Chavez became president, Lare tried to stay neutral politically and was punished for that. He lost his school, his livelihood. His wife lost her job, and so they, like many millions of Venezuelans, left their homes. They landed in North Carolina, where he found work in the construction business as a day laborer, not playing music, and they applied for asylum when they landed here in the U.S. So we talk about music being a universal language that breaks down boundaries and borders like no other art form. You're about to hear some Latin grass that is yet another example that proves that concept. It's amazing that these two found each other in North Carolina. We'll talk about that later on. But they've created something that's very special. So please help me welcome to eTown, Valerie and Joe.
Muchas gracias. Buenas tardes para todos.
Thank you, and good afternoon, everybody.
Hacemos música mixta latinoamericana y música de los Montes Apalaches.
And we do a mix of Latin American and Appalachian folk music styles.
En esta ocasión le vamos a brindar una composición de un gran pianista dominicano llamado Damirón.
And we're going to do one now for you that was composed by a great Dominican musician by the name of Damirón, the piano merengue.
Nosotros quisimos hacer una versión del piano merengue, pero no tenemos piano.
We wanted to do our own version of the piano merengue, but we don't have a piano.
La vamos a hacer al son del arpa, el banjo y al ritmo del merengue.
We're going to do it with our harp and banjo and in the merengue rhythm. We like to call our version the arpa banjo merengue.
mi amorcito, que te llevaré al 15º festival en Guarare. Ahí vamos, mi amorcito, que te llevaré al 15º festival en Guarare. Thank you.
Lottie and Joe, welcome, welcome. I'm so glad you guys are here.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, no, it's
Gracias.
exciting. Joe, I talked a little bit about your background before, but I think it's fair to say that you are atypical in terms of North Carolina banjo and fiddle players because you just fell in love with this other kind of music entirely.
Yeah, I did.
We're so happy you found this particular thing, and what an amazing confluence of mysteries that you found Lottie in North Carolina. I want to ask you about the style of music that he plays. Is it called llanera?
Llanera music, yeah.
Llanera music.
Llano is like a plains region, so the music's named after the plains region that it's played in.
Yeah. And is it unique to Venezuela?
No, actually, it's played in Colombia too. So the Llano is between those two countries.
Yeah. Help me understand what's unique and what distinguishes it from other styles of music.
It's like a melting pot culture, you know. Indigenous America with the maracas meets harp as a European instrument, meets African rhythmic syncopations, and
Sort of in the same way the Germans brought the accordion to Mexico, and that became Tex-Mex, integral part there.
Totally.
Maybe you can help me ask Lade some questions.
Absolutely, I'd love to.
I'd love to know about if that is all true about you shining shoes and singing, and that's how it all got started.
Él quiere saber si es verdad que vos limpiabas botas y cantabas simultáneamente.
Sí, cuando era niño,
Yeah, when I was a kid.
Yeah.
la gente del pueblo preciso me pedía que limpiara los zapatos, pero tenía que cantar.
The townspeople asked me to polish their shoes, but only if I sang. ¿Qué te salía mejor?
Era bueno limpiando zapatos, pero también cantaba bien.
Yeah, he was good at shining shoes, but he also sang well. So
Yeah.
that helped his business.
Yeah, that's good. And I want to ask you about the time when you had a school and you were teaching lots of kids and you were celebrated. And things were going pretty well. Hundreds of kids went through your school.
Sí, la escuela de música la inicié en el año 2009
Yeah, I started that music school in 2009.
y llegamos a tener una cantidad de 460, 470
And
alumnos.
we had like 460, 470 students.
And then the government wanted to take your school away.
Sí, ya luego todo se politizó.
Yeah, but then everything became political.
And so you lost the school. And your wife was an English teacher for an oil company, as I understand it. And she lost her job as well.
Sí.
Yes.
And how come if your wife was an English teacher, your English is so terrible?
¿Y por qué tenés?
Es que casi nunca pasa que los esposos suelen ser buenos alumnos.
Yeah, rarely are husbands good students.
And let me ask you also, when you came to North Carolina, you were doing construction work. Two things. One, I suspect that was very hard on your hands. And two, did you think your music career was finished?
Literalmente para mí fue como dejar morir al músico
It was literally, for me, like letting the musician die
y enfrentar la vida para sacar adelante a mi familia.
and take on life in order to get my family ahead.
Mis manos no tenían condiciones para eso.
My hands were not accustomed to that work.
Por eso mismo mis tendones comenzaron a doler,
And my
a dañarse.
tendons, for that reason, started to get hurt and hurt a lot.
Y de verdad que llegué a pensar que iba a terminar mi vida como trabajador de construcción.
And I thought I would finish out my life as a construction worker.
Yeah. And then you met this guy.
Después conocí a Joe que me llamó con una voz de argentino.
And then I met Joe, who called me with an Argentinian's voice.
Mira, Che, ¿cómo estás?
Parentheses, imitating Argentinian voice.
But and when you finally found each other and you started playing music, I mean, you're also coming from different musical traditions, but did you find that common ground and that musical connection right away?
When we got together, we both had a natural interest in each other's folk traditions. Though Larry didn't understand that he was in the cradle of Appalachian music right here. And so then I took him to a fiddler's convention, and then he walked in and heard all the music happening under Mother Nature, hugged by the stars and the trees, and just burst into tears. He found his tribe.
Yeah, that's so cool. Hey, in case you just tuned in, you're listening to eTown. I'm here with Lottie and Joe. Let me also ask you about when he arrived. Before you guys met, he applied for asylum. Is that what happens when people leave countries that are falling apart and come here?
Yeah,
the process, you apply for asylum.
His wife had faced political persecution and had been threatened, and their lives were in danger. So his wife put in an asylum application for the whole family.
And what year was that?
2017.
I understand they're waiting still for their first interview in that process.
There's so many people coming into the country.
Yeah.
They're trying to process the most recent arrivals so that they can weed through who's actually going
Right.
to qualify for asylum, deport the rest. But that leaves a backlog of people who have been waiting for that interview for many, many years. And that's the unfortunate reality for a lot of asylum
And
seekers.
you talk about this from the stage in your shows, and obviously the border, immigration, foreigners, these are hot button issues. What kind of reaction do you get when you're out there in the world?
They see Larry and they hear his testimony.
Yeah.
It registers with them.
Yeah.
I think people still are people, believe it or not.
Yeah.
Somewhere in there.
Yeah. And I understand you just got back not long ago from a trip to the border. Is that a program? Because I think there's a lot of mystery around what the border is like.
It's
And-
just volunteers, mostly senior citizens.
Yeah.
I work with a pastor. You should go. See
Yeah.
it for yourself, and then try not to see the faces.
Yeah. So that's something that people can do. We can go to the border and we can see what it's like. And there are agencies or groups or
I would suggest going with. I was fortunate enough to get exposed to all this at a camp that Che Apalache and I worked at called Common Ground on the Border, and they give you a chance to go and see this dystopian reality that people talk about it here, but once you go down there, it'll be different for you.
I have a first cousin who lives in Brownsville, Texas, and she spends every day going to the bridge and bringing food and medical supplies and helping people find care and help with paperwork and stuff every day. And she's been there for years. So
Yeah.
I have to go down there and check it out. I haven't done it.
Yeah, I mean, you won't forget the interactions that you have. You see people who are at the brink of death, and then you'll have this moment where you're sitting under a tarp in the desert with some Samaritans, mostly in their 70s and 80s, retirees that moved down to the desert. And then you'll have a conversation with someone under a tarp, and you'll be having a human interaction. And then Border Patrol drives in, and then everything just becomes insane again. And it's witnessing that, bearing witness to that is the best that you can do if that's not your reality.
Yeah. Again, as subtle as your message may be, playing music together, it's a powerful and important message to show that we are all people and that we can share cultures, we can learn from each other, and we can make music together.
See?
It's important. Thank you for doing it.
Yeah, man.
Let's get back to playing music. Welcome back, if you would, Lottie and Joe.
Fire up on the mountain.
Fire up on the mountain.
Flooding here below. Time to find a hiding place from all this earthly woe. There's back and flights to book, but there's nowhere left to go. Y'all were running from the weather. Johnny's in his orchard. Johnny's in his orchard. His apple trees all died. His apple trees all died. Must have been those many years of spraying pesticides that killed off all the little bugs that helped his trees to thrive. John, you can't just blame the weather. Elon's in a spaceship.
Elon's in a spaceship.
He's flying off to Mars. Jefferson is mega yacht, sipping Pinot Noir. The rest of us got left behind to count our lucky stars, and y'all were all going down together. Let's go. running from the weather, and we'll all go down together. We're running from the weather, and we'll all go down together.
Ahora le vamos a dedicar una canción que es muy especial para mí.
We're going to do one now for you that's a very special song to me.
Vamos a hacer, este es mi más sencillo homenaje a la hermosa Sierra Blue Ridge.
That's right. This is Larry's very humble homage to the beautiful Blue Ridge Mountains, his new home. And y'all, there's only one man on planet Earth that can sing bluegrass in Spanish with such authority and conviction. And in his absence, Larry's going to give it his very best try. right now. We call our version Ya Volveré a la Sierra Blue Ridge. 1, 2, 3.
Ya volveré
I'm going back.
a la Sierra Blue Ridge. Ya volveré,
I'm going back.
me marcho hoy. Ya volveré a la Sierra Blue Ridge. Cielito lindo, me quedaré. No eres más mi cariñito, ya no eres mi amor. Vas por allí haciendo lío, solo causándome dolor. Ya volveré
I'm going back.
a la Sierra Blue Ridge. Ya volveré, me marcho hoy. Ya volveré a la Sierra Blue Ridge. Cielito lindo, me quedaré.
Give one, Larry. Nick, get you on.
Esos tiempos tan felices por tu culpa están atrás. Ya no recuerdes más mi nombre. Te pido no me busques más. Ya volveré
I'm going back.
a la Sierra Blue Ridge. Ya volveré, me marcho hoy. Ya volveré a la Sierra Blue Ridge. Cielito lindo, me quedaré. Come on, feel. Tú me llenaste de molestia por tu mal forma de ser. Tú me andas sacando fiesta, voy a desaparecer. Ya volveré
I'm going back.
a la Sierra Blue Ridge. Ya volveré, me marcho hoy. Ya volveré a la Sierra Blue Ridge. Cielito lindo, me quedaré. Cielito lindo, me quedaré.
That's Lottie and Joe. Lottie Bellorin on the harp and the quattro and the bass and the maracas and the vocals. And Joe Troop on the banjo and the fiddle and the guitar and the vocals. Their latest is called Manos Panamericanos, Lottie and Joe. Along with eTones, Adam and Braxton and Seth and Helen.
Your visit to eTown is made possible in part by the Scientific and Cultural Facilities District, or SCFD, one of the largest cultural funding mechanisms in the United States, supporting nearly 300 organizations in the greater Denver, Colorado area. You're listening to eTown.
I'm Nick Forster. I want to say hello to our listeners over here in eTown right now on stations like WEVL, Weevil down in Memphis, Tennessee, on KRML in Carmel, California, and on KDNK in Carbondale, Colorado. Thanks to everybody for listening. As always, if you want some more information about any of our guests this week and you want to find out more about how you can get tickets to live shows or find out how you can stay connected with eTown, lots of stuff is online at etown.org. You can also subscribe to both the podcast and our YouTube channel. All that stuff's online. You can find it, I know. So Larry and Joe, that was pretty cool. Great music. It speaks to many things that we care about, of course, being open to others, other ideas, other styles, other cultures. This program, eTown, was conceived while I was on a tour sponsored by the State Department to bring bluegrass music and other American music to Eastern Europe right after the Berlin Wall came down. So Sam Bush and Laurie Lewis and John Cowan and I were sent overseas by our government, actually, in 1990 to introduce American music to folks who not only never heard it before, but also to kind of demystify the otherness for lots of people who had been told how terrible all Americans were. We tried our best. I'm not sure we did a good job or made a difference, but we were there. We played some music, and a bunch of people came to our shows. It was kind of cool. It's amazing to have that opportunity to play music for people who are not exposed to that particular culture, that particular language even. Valerie, I'm sure you've played in places that were where people didn't speak English and you just had your songs and your energy to bring with you.
Yes, one of my favorite trips was last September going to Kenya in Lamu, and it's a beautiful island. It was just wonderful to be on the motherland, but also to be invited to perform for people who had come from Uganda, Zimbabwe, South Africa, all throughout Africa to this festival in Lamu. And it was called Little Gig. It was a very small festival, so there were only 80 people allowed, and people speaking all different languages and things. And I got to perform my songs, but also play with some of the local musicians. So similar to the blues, a lot of the songs and the music there. So they just picked it right up.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
We could resurrect some of that exportation of American music, because I think if you think about what our Defense Department spends, which I think is now $750 billion a year on Department of Defense, it is 3,750 times the amount we spend on the NEA, for example. So we can probably afford to send more musicians overseas, because if you're talking about peace, ultimately is the goal, it seems like it would be a good use of our dollars and our time and our talents.
I agree, and now that I know those numbers, I can be an ambassador for that.
Yeah, come on. Yeah, let's do it. We are very happy to be able to welcome back to the stage once again Valerie June.
Well, you sit there crying, alone in your beer. Well, you say you've got trouble, my friend said. Well, don't tell me your trouble. You got enough of mine. Be thankful you're living. Drink up and go home. 6 years in the pen. Lost my wife and family, no uncovered. So don't tell me your troubles, got enough of my own. Be thankful you're living, drink up and go home. Play it for 'em now, eTown. Well, there sits a blind man, so blind he can't see. Do you think he's complaining? Well, should you hear me? Don't tell me your troubles, got enough of my own. Be thankful you're living, drink up and go home. Be thankful you're living, drink up and go home. Be thankful you're living, drink up and go home. Have a great night, everybody!
Valerie June. Her latest is called Undercover. It's an EP out, came out last year. Got a new one coming, along with the eTones, Adam Bodine, Braxton Kahn, Seth Lewis, and Helen Forster. Such a positive spirit, bright light. Valerie June. We've got time for one more song. We want to get everybody out here together. We're going to do one more song together. This is something that we cooked up just now, and we think it's going to work. I want to thank all our guests. Once again, thanks to Valerie June, such a bright light, positive spirit. Thanks for being here. Thanks to the eTones. Thanks to Helen Forster. Thanks to Lade and Joe, connecting across continents. Thanks to all our staff and crew. Here's an old danceable Bill Withers tune. I'm Nick Forster. I hope you can be with us next week, right here in eTown.
Sometimes in our lives, we all have pain, we all have sorrow, but if we are wise, we know that there's always tomorrow. Lean on me when you're not strong. I'll be your friend. I'll help you carry on, for it won't be long, but I'm gonna need somebody to lean on.
Please swallow your pride. If you have things you need to borrow, for no one can feel all of those needs that you won't let show. Lean on me when you're not strong. I'll be your friend. I'll help you carry on, for it won't be long. I'm gonna need somebody to lean on. Yeah.
You just call on me, brother, when you need a hand. We all need somebody to lean on.
I just might
Larry and Joe. Valerie June. eTones and Helen. Engineers and volunteers. All of you. Thank you so much. We'll see you next time.
This is a production of eTown.